Hello everyone, I'm Professor Plank. I respond to various theological and ideological questions and claims from a rationalistic and naturalistic approach in an effort to give and explain the opposite viewpoint and help to balance the conversation. If you end up liking what you see in this video and would like to help out the channel, make sure to subscribe and click the bell so you'll always be notified when new content comes out. And of course, like this video, maybe pop in a comment. All that goes a long way towards pleasing the power behind the force that gives all Jedi their power, the YouTube algorithm, and keeping my channel motoring along. Now on to today's video. Today we've caught hold of another 10 questions for atheists video. It's from a YouTuber who goes by OC Catholic, hereafter known as OC. It's pretty old, going back over a decade, and the quality is absolutely horrendous, not only in that it's just a slideshow of grainy images, but also the sound quality is abysmal and very low in volume. But as someone who just recently is coming off a spout of terrible mic and audio issues myself, I won't be too critical of that, and will try to boost and normalize the audio as much as I can. But I wanted to tackle this 10 questions because there are several in here that I've never seen in a Questions for Atheists video before. Some because they're absolutely, hilariously idiotic, and some because they don't seem to have anything to do with atheism, or theism, or theology of any kind. So I thought it'd be fun, and there wouldn't be too much retreading of where we've tread so many times before. And the description of the video says that I have posted these questions online and have not gotten any reasonable answers. Can atheists intelligently answer these questions? Oh, my friend, my brother and your imaginary friend in the sky, you have come to the right place. So let's have a look at some of these questions and see if we can't give OC some of the substantive answers that he's been looking for.
It doesn't.
I really wanted to leave that opening in. It's a 4-minute video and he spends the first 30 seconds on that drawn-out graphic. It absolutely fascinated me. The long, drawn-out seconds in between each rivet being punched in the 4 corners of that plate. The fact that each rivet punch was accompanied by a sound of what seemed like laser fire. The fact that the questioning for atheist tag fired in before the last rivet was punched, which just made my fledgling OCD go into overdrive. Then there was the staticky radio tuning in the voice that sounded like it said, "It doesn't," right as the phrase battle-hardened Catholic Christian appears on screen. Nothing like being tempered in the fires of religious warfare to ring home that love thy neighbor as thyself bit. But no, this whole opening seemed like the work of a 12-year-old from the 1990s getting his first Hewlett-Packard computer with Windows Movie Maker on it and just shoving in all the effects he could, utterly unconnected to anything. But jabbing OC for his video creation skills aside, the question asked as the title for this video then appears, and it says, 10 questions every atheist should be able to answer. There's only one question that every atheist needs to be able to answer as far as I'm aware. And that question is, do you believe in a God? If they can answer that question and the answer is no, then they are an atheist. Nothing else is required. They don't have to be able to answer where the universe came from, how life originated, why do all these various religions exist, why do people feel bad when they do harmful things if there's no God giving us morality, etc., etc., all the multitude of questions that theists like to throw our way. None of them actually need to be answered to not believe in a God. One should not need to justify not believing in something if they don't find sufficient evidence to warrant belief. But since answering theistic questions is a big part of what I do here, I will, as always, indulge the questions from OC. So let's get into them.
Question 10. Why doesn't man have a natural predator?
For one, we do. For two, we have such few predators because we are accomplished predators ourselves. But back to point one. Homo sapiens do have natural predators. There are a variety of animals that are called man-eaters who will hunt, kill, and eat humans if given the opportunity. Leopards, lions, tigers, bears, sharks, crocodiles, alligators, wolves, pythons are some of the several instances of killing and eating humans. Now, we've gotten pretty good at using our technology, our ingenuity, and the resources at our disposal to keep ourselves relatively safe from all these predators these days. So encounters with many of these animals are fairly rare. And we have contingencies in place to protect ourselves from them when we do encounter them. Like, that phone in your pocket that you can use to call for help if you've been treed by an alligator. Also, not that predators can't be prey for other larger, stronger predators, but as a general rule, predators are less likely to be prey for other hunters. And humans are maybe the most prolific predators on Earth. We prey on as many as 1/3 of all vertebrates in the world. Not just necessarily for food, but also for the creation of animal-based products, animal research, or for domestication. But yeah, point is, we are pretty damn good at killing the things that would want to kill us before they get a chance to do so. But that doesn't mean that there aren't physically tougher animals who would be interested in eating human meat if they were given half a chance.
Question 9. Where is man's natural environment or habitat?
Wherever the hell we decide to set up shop. I mean, if you want to go back to the origin of Homo sapiens, that goes back to Africa. Paleoanthropologists and geneticists have found evidence pointing to Africa as the origin of our species. The oldest fossils that may belong to modern humans, dating back as far as 300,000 years, have been unearthed there. So were the oldest stone tools used by our ancestors. So that's where we originated, but that doesn't mean that we should have stayed there. Humans, like many animals, spread out, migrate, are nomadic, if you will. Anywhere on land that is capable of sustaining life is our natural habitat. From ice-cold tundras where people set up camp in igloos, to burning deserts where tribes travel from oasis to oasis. Our natural habitat is wherever we decide to live.
Question 8. Why does man adapt the environment to himself and not adapt to the environment naturally?
We don't. I mean, I just mentioned people who live in igloos where it's super cold. They don't adapt the environment to themselves. If they did, they'd certainly make the climate a lot warmer. The desert dwellers would certainly make it rain more often and cool off a great deal if they had the ability to mold the environment to their whims. But we can't do stuff like that. We do adapt to our environment. Every time you put up an umbrella because it's raining, you're adapting to your environment. Every time you bring a bottle of water on a hike because you know there are no water sources on the trail that you're taking, you're adapting to the environment. Every time you look at the weather forecast before deciding what you're going to wear tomorrow, you're adapting to the environment. Now, I imagine from the picture that you put up to accompany this question, OC, which was an aerial view of a field, that you're referring to farming and agricultural practices. This is not an example of man adapting the environment to himself. This is just using what resources we have to accomplish goals. If someone wants to, say, eat tomatoes, they could go wander around different fields at random, looking for where some tomato plants may have grown, but it'd be much more advantageous to plant some tomato seeds in that patch of dirt right beside their back door. That way, they're guaranteed some tomatoes, and they don't have to go far to get them. And hey, if that works in that little patch of dirt by the door, it'd work even better in that large patch of land by the house. They could grow lots of tomatoes there, have enough for themselves, their family, and their friends, and heck, enough left over to sell to others and make a good living doing nothing but growing those tomatoes, and so on and so forth. Putting the crops in specific locations so we can cultivate them easier than we could if we were just wandering out into the wilderness to see what we can forage, is just more advantageous. And it's not really adapting the environment to us. We aren't altering the way that the environment works. We're just changing the locations of where things grow.
You know, everything in life is location, location, location.
We are no more altering our environment when we plow a field to plant crops than we are when we plow a patch of land to build a house. And if we are adapting our environment to ourselves when we do that, when we build our homes, then beavers are doing the same thing when they build a dam. Or bees are doing the same thing when they build a hive. Animals often, usually even, change things in their territory to suit their needs. That doesn't mean that they're adapting the environment in some kind of way that implies some kind of divinely inspired mandate to bend the world to their whims.
Question 7. The Earth is in the solar system in the galaxy in the universe. What is the universe in?
We don't know. We don't have any data from beyond the confines of our universe in order to definitively answer that question. Possibly the universe is in a multiverse. Or the universe could border other spatial dimensions, and breaching the edge of the universe could be like moving in 4 dimensions instead of our normal 3. As hard for us to contemplate as it would be for a 2-dimensional person living in Flatland to contemplate the idea of moving up and down. Or possibly there just isn't anything outside the universe. Not saying that there might be some kind of empty void there, but literally nothing. The universe is, at its most fundamental level, the instantiation of space-time. So outside the universe, where language fails us because there would technically be no outside of the universe, would be no space and no time. It would be impossible for there to be either location or temporality outside of the universe. So literally nothing. But strictly speaking, yeah, we don't know.
Question 6. Where did all the existing matter in existence come from?
Now, for this one, I'm gonna have to tell you something, OC, that might blow your mind. At least, this idea tends to blow the minds of most Christian apologists that I've encountered, and it's this. The universe did not explode out of nothing. Now, I know, every Christian seems to think that it's the common atheistic position that the universe just sprang up out of nothing at random. But that is not now, nor has it ever been, what Big Bang cosmology posits. The Big Bang was not the creation of the universe out of nothing. It is the expansion of the current presentation of our universe from an initial state of high density and temperature. So, the Big Bang theory surmises that there was primordial energy. That's what the hot, dense state was, because heat, at its most basic, is the byproduct of energy. That energy existed when the Big Bang began. And since time itself would have come into existence with the advent of the Big Bang, that primordial energy existed without time, so in a sense, eternally. Now, under the right conditions, matter and energy are interchangeable. Matter can become energy, and energy can become matter. To manufacture matter in a way that adheres to the first law of thermodynamics, you have to convert energy into matter. This conversion occurred on a cosmic scale about 13 billion years ago. The Big Bang consisted entirely of energy. Matter only came into being as rapid cooling occurred. So energy always existed. That energy expanded outward, forming the universe. Rapid cooling occurred, turning lots of that energy into matter. And that is where all the matter that makes up our universe came from.
Question 5. What tells the amino acids to fire in a precise order in the perfect amounts to start the DNA chain?
Nothing tells it to. When you say it like that, what tells the amino acids to fire in a precise order, you're begging the question. Begging the question is any form of an argument where the conclusion is assumed in one of the premises. Begging the question is a form of circular reasoning. So when you say, what tells the amino acid to do this, you're assuming that something tells or informs the amino acids to do anything. But that's not how it works. It's just chemistry. Amino acids do what they do, and we have descriptive language for it. Hydrogen bonding between amino groups and carboxyl groups in neighboring regions of the protein chain sometimes causes certain patterns of folding to occur, known as alpha helices and beta sheets. These stable folding patterns make up the secondary structure of a protein. So there it was, hydrogen bonding causes them to group the way they do. And what's hydrogen bonds? Well, in chemistry, a hydrogen bond, or H-bond, is primarily an electrostatic force of attraction between a hydrogen atom, which is covalently bonded to a more electronegative donor atom or group, and another electronegative atom bearing a lone pair of electrons, the hydrogen bond acceptor. So there you go, a quick and dirty version of organic chemistry. But the key takeaway here is that our understanding and descriptions of these molecular activities is descriptive, not prescriptive. These chemicals and molecules and atoms don't bond or interact in these specific ways because we, or anyone, or anything, is telling them to do so. They're simply doing what they do. It's what's in their nature to do. And we found language to describe these processes. And I know it all can be quite the mindfuck and very difficult for the layperson to wrap their head around. It'd be so much simpler and possibly more satisfying to just say an all-powerful paternal figure uses magic to do all of this. But there's no more rationale to that line of thinking than there was to the idea that illnesses were caused by demonic possession. Your inability to fully grasp the difficulties of the natural world does not justify turning to mystical explanations because they're more comforting to you.
The universe is under no obligation to make sense to you.
Question 4. What gives DNA its precise instructions?
I believe I've already answered that question.
Seriously, same answer as before.
Question 3. Mathematically speaking, what are the odds that 90% of the world population who believe in a god or gods are under a mass delusion, but you are not?
I wouldn't know how to begin to calculate the odds mathematically because there are variables that aren't mathematically known here. In order to calculate the odds of people who believe in anything being wrong, where them being wrong would be them under a mass delusion for believing that wrong thing, we would have to first know what the odds are that they're right. What are the odds that a god does exist? And that is, frankly, an unanswerable question because most God concepts are, by their very nature, unfalsifiable. And any claim that's unfalsifiable is ultimately untestable and incalculable in terms of its likelihood of being right or wrong. But there can be no doubt that, no matter what the truth of the matter is concerning God, some massive amount of people are under a mass delusion. Because not every religion's concept of God can be correct. Most God concepts are mutually exclusive. So either they are right about the nature of God, or they've got the nature of God totally wrong. So even if there is a God, the majority of people are going to be wrong about the nature of that God. Like, for instance, let's say...
yes, I'm sorry. I'm afraid the Jews were right.
That would mean that Christians were wrong about Jesus being the incarnation of God and the one true Messiah. So that would be 2.4 billion Christians all over the world, and even more throughout history, who have been under a mass delusion. What are the odds of that? Not to mention all the other world religions that differ greatly from Judaism. What if, say, Islam got it right, thereby making everyone in the world not Muslim under a mass delusion? And even if you are right, Christianity is right, that's over 5.5 billion people who aren't Christian and don't believe that Jesus was the Messiah that are under a mass delusion. They're going to be a mass delusion no matter what. And it's not like mass delusion on a worldwide scale is uncommon. Once upon a time, everyone was under the mass delusion that Earth was the center of the universe, or at least the solar system, and that the sun moved around the planet. I'm sure there were geocentrists up through the 16th century who would have asked, mathematically, what are the odds that everyone in the world is under the mass delusion that the Earth is the center of the universe? Well, I'm sure if anyone tried to calculate it, they would have said it was so ridiculously unlikely that everyone in the world was wrong about it. And yet, they were. Now, of course, this is simply an appeal to common belief fallacy. When the claim that most or many people in general, or of a particular group, accept a belief as true is presented as evidence for the claim. Accepting another person's belief, or many people's belief, without demanding evidence as to why that person accepts the belief is lazy thinking and a dangerous way to accept information. Just because a lot of people believe in something is no reason to accept it as true. Let's go back to an old saying that everyone's mama said to him at least once when you were stupidly following the crowd. If everyone jumped off a cliff, would you jump off too? By the way, belief in God, in America anyway, is not at 90%. It's down to about 81% as of last year, and on a pretty steady decline. And that's actually a pretty high percentage of believers, 81%, as far as other countries go. Most countries in the Western world have significantly lower numbers of people who absolutely believe that a God exists.
Question 2. If, when people die, they cease to exist, yet science tells us that energy animates the body, and energy cannot be created or destroyed, and thus lives forever, how is it that we cease to exist in our grave?
Your radio runs on electricity. That electricity is energy, which cannot be created or destroyed. So when you unplug your radio and that energy dissipates, does that electricity keep the song that was playing when you pulled the plug? No. Nor does the energy animating your body keep any vestige or remnant of your mind, memories, personality, or consciousness. Biological energy is just what you run on. It's not what or who you are any more than the food you eat is who you are. Who you are, your consciousness, the you of you, is produced by your brain. When you die, your brain's energy supply is cut off and it ceases to function, meaning it ceases producing your consciousness. The energy that was driving your brain is just that, energy, chemical energy. It still exists, but it doesn't think, it doesn't remember, it doesn't will. It isn't a being or an entity. The energy in your PlayStation doesn't save the character you created in Baldur's Gate when the power goes out. If your PlayStation is then broken apart, broken into pieces, smashed, and buried in the ground, the character is gone, because it's the PlayStation that saved the character. And so is the case with you, and me, and everything else that dies.
This parrot is no more. He has ceased to be. It's a stiff, bereft of life. It rests in peace. If you hadn't nailed it to the perch, it would be pushing up the daisies.
And the number one question that atheists should be able to answer is, does life have a purpose? If the answer is no, then scientifically and definitively, atheism is an illogical argument. For life to have purpose, reason is required. Reason comes from intelligence. So you have to ask yourself, if life has no purpose, then your argument for atheism just doesn't work and it cannot be rationalized. If life has a purpose, then you must conclude that that purpose has a reason and that reason comes from intelligence. So, does life have a purpose?
Yes, life does have a purpose, and that purpose is whatever each and every one of us chooses as the purpose for our lives. We determine our own purpose. There's no reason to think or to expect that there's an externally imposed purpose to anyone's life. Life evolves and thrives because that is built into its basic nature. We are, like all living things, driven by instinct to procreate and to survive. From the lowest microorganism to the highest multicellular life, that's what all life has in its nature to do. Now, beyond that simple exist and procreate and survive, we choose the more complex, more engaging, and dare I say, more interesting reasons for our lives for ourselves. So yes, purpose does come from reason, and reason comes from intelligence. Our intelligence. Our perception of our lives, what we want them to be, and what we feel and ascertain are purposes for ourselves. So there were OC's 10 questions that every atheist should be able to answer. And though answers for all of these questions aren't difficult to come by from a secular perspective or a naturalistic mindset, I again need to reiterate that no atheist needs to answer any of these questions. I mean, sure, we can. There are answers, as I've given some of them out here. But if someone were to just say, I don't know, to each and every one of these questions, that does not then in any way give any extra credence to any particular God belief. If OC asks these 10 questions to an atheist and gets nothing but, I don't know, to every answer, and then comes back at the end with, then how can you be an atheist if you can't answer any of these questions? Well, it's because the atheist still sees no reason to believe in any claim of God. Saying I don't know to questions about biology or chemistry or cosmology or philosophy where life purpose is concerned does not then default to, well, I guess magic, all-powerful God beings did it all then. If you don't know the answer to something, you don't jump to the first fairy tale that promises you magical reasoning behind all of your unknowns. That's why people thought a giant named Atlas held the world on his shoulders to keep it from falling, because they didn't understand how planetary bodies moved, and so they jumped to the first fanciful story that promised them an answer. Just some answer, even though it was silly. That's why people burned women at the stake as witches for casting curses with no other evidence than that their crops didn't grow as well as they thought they should. A rational mind does not glom onto irrational conclusions just because they haven't figured out a logical one. And so that is where we'll end things for today. So thanks for watching, everyone. Don't forget to like this video, comment, and subscribe so you'll always be notified when a new video comes out. Until next time, I'm Professor Plink reminding you to keep striving for greater understanding. It's the best way to get wherever you want to go.